King Frederick II in the 13th century carried out barbaric experiments to prove that if not spoken to, babies would spontaneously speak a language. He assumed that all babies were hardwired to speak German. He was indeed German himself. And he did this experiment by exposing babies to nursing care, and the nurses were forbidden to speak to the babies. Well, he was wrong, and he was wrong because all the babies died before they could start speaking spontaneously. But the reason they died was because, in addition to not speaking to these babies, the nurses were told never to touch the babies. And they died due to lack of touch, if you like. This was an ancient form of what we now term failure to thrive. And if you look in intensive care baby units nowadays, you will see that parents are encouraged to hold their babies even for short periods of time, with very substantial improvements in their health status. Humans can survive if they're blind. Humans can survive if they have no hearing. Humans can survive if they have neither hearing or vision. But humans cannot survive if they do not have touch. So touch lies at the very centre of human life. Today I want to talk about touch. That's right, our sense of touch, and how it's so unbelievably important in thinking about the skin and how it's helped humans dominate planet Earth. People talk about us having 5 senses, don't they? Vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. In fact, we've probably got more like 33 senses, and touch, for instance, is not really just one thing. There's different types of touch, like vibration and stretching, for instance. So touch is the mother of all senses, according to biologists. It seems to have been the first sense that evolved in all forms of life, even with simple cells such as amoebas or bacteria. If you just touch them with a stick, they move to avoid. So touch is critical to all life forms. But touch lies absolutely at the centre of the huge success of us as a species on planet Earth. And it's another demonstration of the unique connection that exists between our skin and our brain. In our skin, we have a number of specialized receptors that pick up on different aspects of touch. Some of them very gentle touch, some of them constant pressure, some of them stretching, some of them vibration. They're widespread throughout the skin, but maximal in certain areas of our body, particularly our hands, around our mouth, for instance. And messages from these specialized receptors pass all the way up from the tips of our toes, all the way up to a specialized area of the brain called the sensory homunculus, which is a rather exotic word. But essentially, it covers a huge part of one area of the brain. Areas such as the lips and the hands have a big part of this area of the brain, showing how we've specialized in prioritizing sensory input from our lips and our hands. And this is because the use of all the touch information from your skin has enabled us as a species to develop the ability to handle and use tools, and critically important, to be able to develop the skill of writing. Why is that so important? The use of tools is obviously self-evident, but what's often not talked about is the digital dexterity that is necessary to be able to hold a writing implement and to write. And with writing, for the first time in history, we have the ability not to just rely on a good story being told by an elder relative, passing on knowledge through story. By committing to writing, we have a permanent archiving of a knowledge base, if you like, which can be referenced by later generations and added to by other intelligent humans coming down the line. This enables an explosive growth in the ability of humans to share knowledge. And this cooperation of humans through writing rather than language has had a massive impact on us evolving our cooperative societies and dominating in a way that no other animal has managed. And it's all come from the interaction of touch with the brain. So it's very, very important. But beside just the mechanical importance of touch, there's also an emotional importance. Harlow, who is an American psychologist, was able to show that rhesus monkeys, when they had a pretend mother who was covered in soft material versus a pretend mother that was made out of sharper wire, but whom had lots of food, that the monkeys preferred, in spite of the food, to spend time with the cosseting, comforting, loving feeling that soft touch gave to the animals. So the emotional component is equally important as the mechanical component in the dominance of touch in our story. The third and final thing to say about touch is what I've described so far is what dermatologists call as non-sexual touch. But there is a form of touch called sexual touch, because our skin is actually our largest sexual organ. And there are in fact specialized receptors called Krauss corpuscles present in areas such as penis, clitoris, nipples, etc., that when stimulated, often via vibration, sexual arousal happens. There seem to be separate circuits in the nervous system carrying sexual messages. So the skin and touch is absolutely crucial for sexual activation as well. As the sole purpose of evolution is the transfer of genetic material via sexual activity, touch stands at the absolute heart even of our evolutionary progress. So that quick overview of touch I hope you found interesting, and you can see why it is the master sense of the skin. We need the mechanical input that touch gives us as a sense, but we need the emotional input as well. And we also need the sexual input of touch, because without this, evolution and the transfer of genetic material from one generation to another simply can't happen. This is why touch is so crucial, and this is why the brain gives over such a big area for its interpretation from sensitive areas. No other animal in the kingdom of Earth has got the digital dexterity that humans have. So thanks for watching. I hope you found that interesting, hopefully somewhat amusing in parts, and I'll see you next time.